Hey y'all, today I'm really excited to tell you about how any exercise can be a core and pelvic floor exercise. My main inspiration for this video is just what I do with patients every day in the clinic. So as a pelvic floor physical therapist, when someone comes to see me with core and pelvic floor dysfunction, the end of PT, we might have to do a lot of things to balance out core and pelvic floor, teach them how to use it correctly, all of those fun things. But we always progress to and get to full body strength exercises, not just sticking with your traditional core and pelvic floor exercises, because I want them to learn how to use their core and their pelvic floor appropriately no matter what they're doing, because that inner part of their core, the stabilizing muscle, should be a part of everything that you do in everyday life and in whatever your workouts or your exercise looks like. Before we jump into that, I want to tell you about a free class that I have coming up on October 18th. It is a free core and pelvic floor class, 3 things that you can start doing now to strengthen your core and pelvic floor. The link to sign up for that is in the description of this video. If you're watching this after October 18th, you can also see the link in the description to get access to the recording. If you are watching this before October 18th and you want to attend the class but you can't attend it live, still register for the class because you are going to get the recording sent straight to your inbox as soon as the class is over with. But now let's jump into how you can make any exercise a core and pelvic floor exercise. To truly understand how to work on your core and your pelvic floor strength and coordination, no matter what exercise you're doing, you first and foremost have to understand how those muscles interact and react with your breathing. So that's why with pelvic floor physical therapy, a lot of times we're starting at breath work, retraining the diaphragm and retraining breathing patterns, because we have to have that going correctly in order to really understand how to use the core and the pelvic floor correctly no matter what activity you're doing. So once we understand how the core and the pelvic floor work with your breath, and then we pair that breathing pattern with exercises and activities, or simply just carrying and lifting your kids, carrying groceries in, whatever that might look like, as soon as we understand how to use our breath during activities appropriately, and we've already taken the time to learn how the core and the pelvic floor works with the breath, then we can truly make sure that all of that is working together no matter what the exercise or activity is. So just a little sneak peek, just a little snippet. I don't want to overwhelm you when I don't have that much time in a YouTube video that I want to keep short and sweet. I want to tell you a little bit about breath and pelvic floor and core. Essentially, I want you to remember to always pair the E's. So always exhale with effort. So whether that's picking something heavy up around your house or doing heavy deadlifts and heavy squats, whatever that heavy or effort thing is, we are always exhaling as we do the effort part, because with our exhale, our body is pre-programmed for that inner core and that pelvic floor to shorten or come in at the most strong part while we are doing an exhale, or where our diaphragm is moving in that upward direction to help us do that exhale. So whenever you are trying to figure out, how am I supposed to be breathing? How am I supposed to be pairing this when I pick up my kids or when I pick up the dumbbell? We're always exhaling at the highest effort part of whatever it is that you're doing. So that's like lesson 1, baseline. If we can get that right, then that's half the battle. There's a lot more that goes into it, because we also have to think, is the diaphragm even doing what it's supposed to do? Is my breathing pattern even breathing the way that I want it to, or that is most efficient for my core and my pelvic floor? A lot of that is where we start in physical therapy, and people's breathing patterns can be off or not as efficient in a lot of different ways. So it's not really worth talking through every single way in this video. But if we can just start with making sure that we are exhaling at the time that we're doing the thing that is the hardest, then that's half the battle of pairing your breath and therefore pairing your core and your pelvic floor well, no matter what exercise you are doing or activity of daily living that you're doing. So that brings me to what we might have to do before we can truly count on every exercise being a core and pelvic floor exercise. we might have to backtrack a little bit and see, one, is the breathing pattern going the way that we want it to in the first place? But two, can we automatically and easily, without having to think so hard about it, pair the core and the pelvic floor lengthening and shortening with the right part of the breath cycle? And that's where we're laying those foundations with body weight exercises, maybe light band resisted exercises, nothing that is an intense load, because what we're really doing with the exercise is making certain patterns automatic so that we can automatically feel strong and supported from our core and pelvic floor, even when we're doing something heavy, without having to think so hard about it, and we can trust that it's happening automatically. That's a lot of what we're doing in pelvic floor physical therapy, is identifying where those things are going wrong and then giving the corrective exercises so that people can start to learn those patterns linked together and do them in their sleep without even having to think about it before we start to load the muscles. If that sounds like something that you're like, ooh, I probably need to start there, I don't even know if that's happening correctly, I want to invite you to the upcoming launch of my new program, Conquer Core Foundations. Conquer Core Foundations is going to be a 12-week educational and progressive exercise program that is going to take those 12 weeks to lay those foundations and take you step by step to progressively building those foundations until we work you into a whole body strengthening workout routine where you really know that you're doing those foundations correctly. We're breathing correctly, we're linking our core and our pelvic floor correctly, and then we're taking that into functional movements where we get to strengthen the muscles, strengthen the patterns, so that you have that foundational strength to feel supported in whatever workouts you want to do or whatever daily living and daily activities look like for you. That program is launching on October 21st. The link to the wait list is going to be in the description below. Or if this is past October 21st and you want to check that program out, then the link is going to be in the description. But as we're going through this in this video, if that sounds like something that you're like, well, that's probably where I need to start, especially if you're postpartum and you never went back and laid those foundations or relearned those foundations after pregnancy, then that's a great place for you to start. And that's a resource that I have for you. So if all of this feels overwhelming and confusing, we have it laid out step by step in that program. Once you have those foundations laid and you know that those patterns are happening correctly, you know without a doubt when to inhale, when to exhale in an exercise, what your core and your pelvic floor are supposed to do with the inhale and with the exhale. Now every exercise, not just core exercises, are a chance to strengthen your core and your pelvic floor. So whether it is an actual core exercise, maybe it's like a plank or crunches or more traditional core exercises you would think of that aren't necessarily targeting that inner core unit and those stabilizing muscles of your core. It's more targeting the big six-pack muscle, the movers of your core. That's okay, because we should still be using our inner core and our pelvic floor appropriately to do those exercises well. Same goes for lower body exercises. That's another place where a lot of people want to learn, like, what should our hips be doing? How should I hip hinge? What are my glutes doing? And those kinds of things. But if we're moving weight, or even if it's just body weight or the weight of our kids that we're carrying as we move in and out of a chair, up and down stairs, on a hike, and we're carrying our kiddos, whatever that looks like, any lower body work, our pelvic floor and our core still needs to be supporting those activities. And if we have the power and the knowledge that it takes to check in with those muscles and make sure they're doing their job well, then everything that we do when we're using our legs and trying to make our legs stronger is now a chance to train and strengthen the core and the pelvic floor. Last but not least, upper body exercises. This is the place that I find is toughest to get people to realize that we're still thinking core and pelvic floor here. Everything that we do requires pressure management and stability, whether it's an upper body exercise, lower body exercise, core exercise, and any other exercise type you can think of. Plyometrics, running, cardio, any of that. When we know what our breath is supposed to do and what our inner core and our pelvic floor is supposed to do when we're doing a pull-up, a push-up, bicep curls, tricep extensions, anything like that, then we can always briefly check in with those muscles, make sure they're doing their job. And then that bicep curl is now also a core and pelvic floor strengthener, because we should be using those muscles while we move that weight, even if the real focus of the exercise is on strengthening the biceps. So those are all examples of, if we really know what we're doing with core and pelvic floor, and especially with breath and diaphragm and breathing pattern, then every single exercise or activity that we do has the potential to be a core and pelvic floor exercise, which again is the reason why in pelvic floor PT, in my clinic and in my practice, patients are getting away from the traditional core and pelvic floor exercises pretty darn quickly, because I want those muscles to know how they're supposed to work as a team with the rest of the body, not just in isolation all by themselves, because then that leaves people having to do those mat, core, and pelvic floor exercises for the rest of their lives. We don't want you having to do that. We want you graduating past that and learning how it works with the whole system, so that you can go do the things that you enjoy doing, the type of workouts that you enjoy doing, and you can feel good knowing, even by doing this Orange Theory workout, I paid attention to my breathing and my core and my pelvic floor all the way through. So I did something really good to support my core and pelvic floor health, even while I challenged my cardiovascular system, worked my upper body, worked my lower body. And now, instead of having to stop and take that 30 minutes a few times a week to do your core exercises, we're just using them during your other workouts. So again, if that is a place that you would like to get to, I want to invite you to my upcoming free core and pelvic floor class, 3 things that you can start doing now to strengthen your core and pelvic floor. What we just talked about is a huge basis for that class. So we're going to get into laying some of the groundwork and laying some of the foundations so that your core and your pelvic floor are moving with you automatically, instead of you always having to do those simple core and pelvic floor exercises. We're going to be setting up breath. We're going to be talking about posture, talking about how to set your body up to use your core and your pelvic floor no matter what you're doing. So my promise to you with that 1 hour online class is that it's going to be a no fluff class. It's not going to be just the why you need to do things. We're actually going to get into the how and the what you need to do to feel stronger and more supported by your core and pelvic floor. That class is going to be online on Friday, October 18th. If you're unable to attend live, registering for the class is still going to get you the recording sent right when the class is over, so that you are still able to participate and watch the class. Also, if this is after October 18th, we're going to have the replay available. So that's the link that you'll see in the description below instead of registering for the free or for the live class. We are going to make sure that you're going to walk away with real tangible steps on using your core and pelvic floor appropriately in your everyday life and in your everyday workouts. So my hope for you is that you get a lot of value out of that class. If you're someone who thinks that you have even more questions, then attending live is going to make sure that you get to participate in the Q&A section at the end and get your questions answered. So if you're available to join live, I highly recommend it so we can get those questions answered. I hope that this was informative. I hope it helped teach you a little bit about your core and pelvic floor and take away some of the mystery around the core and the pelvic floor. And I'll see you guys next week.